The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's Lunch and Learn session. Today's topic is on advanced business intelligence with Sage 100 Contractor with presenter Peg Dolente. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Everyone will be in listen-only mode, so if you have questions, please type them into the questions box on your screen, and we will address them at the end of the session. If you need to step away, please do not put your phone on hold. If you have hold music, it will play for all the attendees. This webinar will be recorded, and we will email a copy out to everyone within a few days. I will now turn it over to you, Peg.
Thanks, Krista. I'm very happy to be here today to talk about business intelligence. It's really exciting technology that I enjoy working with. And I'm happy to share some of what I've learned and give you an idea of what's possible with business information systems. First, we'll start with the agenda. What is business intelligence, or BI as it is often called, and why is it important? I'm going to tell you about the top 3 BI tools for Sage 100. We'll talk about key performance indicators, or KPIs, what they are and why they're important. I'll mention some financial KPIs and some project KPIs, and I'll also give you sources for information on KPIs if you're interested in starting to use them and get familiar with them. We're going to talk about dashboards. Dashboards came out a few years ago. There's great technology for dashboards, and I'm very excited to show you some examples. We'll be looking at the Sage 100 dashboard, and I will show you how to customize it and use it. And then I'm going to show you Liquidity Reports as a tool for creating and customizing dashboards. I have a financial dashboard and a project management dashboard to show you. Liquidity Reports, for those of you who don't know about it, it's an Excel add-in. Came out about 2 years ago, and it enables us to pull Sage 100 data directly into Excel for reporting. So I'll talk more about that a little bit later. Okay, what is business intelligence? Well, the best definition is that it's technology that transforms raw data into meaningful information that can be used to enable business insights and decision making. And I highlighted the important words there. Good business intelligence has to be meaningful, and it has to enable insights and decision making. It should promote understanding and provide opportunities for action to make improvements. If it doesn't do that, then it's not very good business intelligence. The top 3 BI tools for Sage 100 are the Sage 100 dashboard. I'm sure some of you are using it, but I'll bet there are people on the call who haven't used it yet, so I'm going to get you familiar with that. Excel is the second tool. Excel, over the years, has evolved into a very robust business intelligence tool. Especially now that we have Liquidity Reports, it makes it easy for us to pull data into Excel from Sage 100, and then use all the features that we know of in Excel, formulas, formatting, etc., to create reports. And they've added tools. Pivot tables is one of my favorites. It's been around for a long time. They've gotten easier and easier, and recently Microsoft introduced Power Pivot, which is very robust. It's like pivot tables on steroids. That's a great tool. And the most recent version of Excel has a tool called Power View that can be used to create dashboards. So Excel is really one of the leading BI tools for Sage 100. The third tool that I'm going to mention is Crystal Reports. Crystal Reports is a custom report writer that's been around for many years. Over the years, I've written a number of custom Crystal reports for Sage 100, as have other people around the country. It's a strong tool. I'm not going to focus on it today because I want to focus on the tools that you have. Everybody has the Sage 100 dashboard, and I'm betting that everybody on the call also has Excel. So that's where we're going to focus today. Key performance indicators. In business intelligence, there's a lot of talk about key performance indicators. So what is it? Well, a key performance indicator, or a KPI, is a measure of performance that's critical to the success of a company. You can think of it like a signal light on your car dashboard. A KPI can tell you whether or not the tank is full or not, or whether there is a problem that needs your immediate attention. You can also think of KPIs as a meaningful yardstick you can use to compare one project against another, one financial period against another, or a year against another year in Sage, or your company versus other companies of a similar size and type. Now, I've done that with my financial dashboard that I'll be showing you in a little while. I do want to emphasize that KPIs are not at all complicated. They're really nothing more than making simple calculations on pieces of information that you can see on your balance sheet and income statement in Sage. And the payoff is very big. It can really help you understand the health of your business or pinpoint problems. So we're first going to talk about financial KPIs. And there's basically 4 different kinds, and I don't want to get too hung up on how they're calculated, because when we get to the slide on sources of information, there's a website where you can go and you can download for free a PDF that explains all the important KPIs, how to calculate them, and how to interpret them. So what I want to achieve with this slide is just give you a big picture on the 4 different kinds of financial KPIs. First, there are common size ratios, and this is where you measure as a percentage the size of each item in a total on your financial statement. And you can use that to easily compare performance between periods. So I'm going to switch right now to Sage, because I want to show you the income statement you've probably looked at, and I want to point out what the common size ratios are on that statement. So I'm going to run the period and year to date. And I'm running this in a sample company. You can see that I have a column of numbers for the period, and I have a column of numbers for the year to date. And next to each one of these, I have percentages. And those percentages are simply calculations of the line, for example, material in this case, $192,000, divided by my total operating income of $661,000. Each one of these is simply a percentage of that line over total operating income. And why is that a good thing to look at? Well, it's a good thing to look at because it's much more meaningful when you're comparing periods to compare the total ratio. Let's look at gross profit for a minute. I can look at the current period. I see I have 26% gross profit. And year to date, I have 32% gross profit. So my gross profit in this period is down. And I want to be monitoring that and asking questions. If I am billing on a regular basis, I would expect it to be more consistent. So when you look at your income statement, you want to compare the totals, especially gross profit and net income. You want to compare your period percentage to your year to date. Or maybe you want to compare this year to date versus last year to date. It can be very valuable to understand which way this is going. You don't want to see a lot of wild fluctuations. So those are common size ratios. Let's come back to my slide. The next kind of ratio is a liquidity ratio, and that measures your company's ability to cover its expenses. And if you have a bank loan or you're going to apply for a bank loan, you can be sure the banker is going to be calculating a current ratio and a quick ratio on your balance sheet. And they're simple to compute. Current ratio, you just take your total current assets divided by your current liabilities, and that tells the banker if you have enough money to pay your current debts and also have a comfortable cushion. If you don't, that's a real red flag. The quick ratio is very similar, but instead of taking all your current assets and dividing by current liabilities, we're taking the most liquid assets, cash and cash equivalents, and AR net of the allowance for doubtful accounts. The third of the four is operating ratios, and those are a measure of the efficiency of your company. For example, the net profit margin is a really important one, and we just saw that on the income statement. Some companies look at their profit before taxes divided by their total assets, and you'll see that on the dashboard that I'm going to show you in Excel. The last kind is solvency ratios, and they are an indication of the stability of your company and your company's ability to repay debt. And there are two that are commonly used, but there are more than two. And these two you're going to see on my dashboard, my financial dashboard. And when you see this fixed worth ratio, it's taking net fixed assets and dividing by tangible net worth. Just think of tangible net worth as your total equity number on the balance sheet. If you had intangibles like goodwill, you would subtract that out, but most of you would not. I would not expect that you did. So you would just take your net fixed assets divided by your total equity. So just as there are financial ratios, there are also project ratios that are helpful to track. I'm going to just give you a few of them. The first one is the schedule variance. That's the difference between planned and forecasted completion duration on the various tasks in construction. And if you are using Sage's scheduling module, you can be tracking that. Gross margin variance indicator is really important, and you'll see that on a number of the project management reports. You want to be tracking over time the difference between your actual expenses and your planned gross margin. That would be your revised budget. Unapproved change orders, another important thing to track. That's the sum of all the costs incurred on change orders that have not yet been approved. You've got some financial exposure there if you're incurring costs and the owner has not yet approved a change order. Project cash flow indicator. This is the difference between all cash receipts and disbursements on a project. And you're going to see this on the Sage dashboard that I'll be showing you shortly. Committed cost indicator. That's the total of all uncommitted costs divided by committed costs. The reason you want to pay attention to that is because you've got some financial exposure with uncommitted costs due to increases in material prices or increases in subcontract prices. And the last one I'm going to mention is equipment utilization. If you are a company that has a significant investment in heavy equipment, you might want to calculate the number of days equipment was used divided by the number of days available. Okay, I promised I would give you some sources of information on KPIs. And I'm listing three. There are more than three, but these are the very well-known ones. The first is a reference book called RMA Annual Statement Studies. It's been published for almost 100 years every year, and they take financial statements for roughly 250,000 businesses, and they analyze them, and they give you a summary report which enables you to go to a company of your type, and they have 30 different kinds of construction companies, by the way, and you can, based on the size of your company, you can quickly scan down a column and see what your common ratios should be, and also, if you calculate your KPIs, what they should be. So it's a great resource, and this also is the website where you can download for free a PDF that explains all the major KPIs, how to calculate them, and how to interpret them. So I highly recommend that you do that if you're interested. The second site is called BizMiner, and on that site, for a fee of about $75, you can download a report specific to your business in your part of the country. So that's another good resource. The last one is the Construction Industry Annual Financial Survey. It's like the RMA, but it's limited to just construction companies. So you can go to this web address to get more information on that. All right, we're going to move on now to dashboards. Dashboards is a really exciting development in the field of business intelligence. Came out a number of years ago, but it keeps getting better and better. So what is a dashboard? A dashboard is a single screen display of the most important information presented in a way that allows the user to monitor what's going on in an instant, as opposed to a report that might be several pages long and it's all numbers and you have to really read it and study it to understand what it means. A dashboard is a single page and there's a lot of graphical information to direct your attention to what's important. Dashboards vary by the role of the user. A dashboard for a project manager is going to be different from a dashboard for a financial officer or a controller. Dashboards should update instantly, so decision-making is the key instead of collecting data. And most importantly, it should help the user quickly identify areas of concern. So if your dashboard does these things, then it's considered a very good BI tool. Okay, so I want to show you some dashboards. We're going to start with the Sage 100 dashboard, and I'll tell you how to use it, how to customize it, how to set security for it. And then I'm going to show you two dashboards that I did in Excel with the help of Liberty Reports. One is financial, the other is project management. So I'm going to go to Sage now. And this button at the bottom of the screen is how you bring up the dashboard. And when you first install Sage, by default, this is what the dashboard looks like. And I'm sure there are people in the audience today who are using this, but I'll bet there are people who haven't. So I really think it's a great tool and it's worth spending some time on. Max Dykers, one of our consultants, did a great presentation on dashboards and alerts earlier this year, and that is on the Accordant website. So if you want to talk about alerts, I'm not going to get into that today, but if you want to learn more about them, go to the Accordant website and look at that Lunch and Learn recording. The first section I want to talk about is this cash section. It has the balances for your cash accounts, so you can monitor them on a daily basis. You can drill down to see all the activity in that cash account. And underneath that, this is a great little section called cash position. This is similar to the quick ratio that I mentioned a few minutes ago. It adds up your total cash. It adds to that your accounts receivable, and it subtracts your current liabilities. The difference is your cash position, and you want that to be a positive number with a comfortable margin. So just looking at the sample company, we've got a healthy cash position here. But not everybody is that lucky, so you should be monitoring your cash position on a daily basis, and it's easy to do with this tool. The next three sections are agings. They're just totals for each aging period, just grand totals. Now, you'll see that mine doesn't look so good. I've got red numbers. All my aging is in the overdue. That's because I'm running this on the sample company, and the invoices are dated 2011. So yours is not going to look like this. But you get the idea. I can drill down on these to see the underlying information. I can see the vendors here, and I can see the balances by invoice. I always like to see the big picture first and then drill down into the details. Beneath that, I've got a nice summary of income from operations. And it shows me a column for this month, a column for this quarter, and this year. So I can easily compare the trend. And if I want to, I can drill down on this. Oops. I can drill down to the financial statement and then further drill down to the general ledger. Great, great tool. All right, at the very bottom, it shows me outstanding change orders, and it groups them into less than 30 days and more than 30 days. And if it's more than 30 days, it's highlighted in red because it's not a good idea to have your change orders unapproved for so long. I can drill down on this, and I can see the change orders, and I can even drill down to that very record under 641. Sorry, I have a cold. I'm hoping my voice is going to hold out. All right. So this is, I told you could customize it, and that's very easy to do by clicking the Add Remove Content link. That takes me to a screen where there is a tab for each of these modules. And these are all pieces I can plug into the dashboard if I want to. The ones that are already there have a remove button. So all the ones that say add are ones that I can preview and look at, and if I like them, I can add them. And I highly recommend that you do add some of these. For example, if your company has departments, take a look at department income and expenses. That shows for each month of the year my income in green and my expenses in red. And I can add that just by clicking the Add button. Now, I'm in the sample company, so I want to add a consolidated graph for, and I also want to add another one for each of my departments. So I've clicked Add 3 times. You might also be interested in previous year income compared to this year. If you're going to put that one on, you probably want to put on previous year expense compared to this year. So take some time to look through these and add the ones that are important to you. Payables, there's a couple good ones. If you take, if your vendors give you discounts, you're going to want to add the expiring discount. That shows you discounts that are going to expire this week and next week, so you can stay on top of them and not lose money. A couple great receivable plugins that you might be interested in. And on the project management side, some really good pieces for your dashboard. For example, remember I said it's really important to track your cash flow by project? Well, here it is. I can plug this in simply by clicking the Add button. When I do, it allows me to check off up to 6 jobs that I want to see on the dashboard. Or I can list these by project manager and just check off the ones that I'm interested in. Don't worry about the fact that there's a limit of 6. If you want to track more than that, you can add it more than once. So that's definitely one that I would recommend you add to your dashboard. Okay, well, when you're finished making your changes, you just close this window. Oh, before I leave, I wanted to point out security. Each one of these has a security tab. So for general ledger, you most likely are going to want to restrict who can see the general ledger parts of the dashboard. So you can restrict it by simply unchecking the security groups that you don't want to see this part. Very easy to do. All right, I'm going to close this window, and now my dashboard has gotten a little bit bigger. Notice the department, that my 3 department graphs, they say all departments. I'm going to edit the second one. I'm going to select just the California department. And the last one, I'm going to edit and select the Nevada office. So now I have a nice consolidated graph, and underneath that, each one of my 2 departments. And here, my cash flow, I didn't select jobs. I'm going to edit it and pick a few jobs. So I can see how much cash was collected, how much was paid, and what the net cash flow is. And you'll notice that negative cash flow is highlighted in red, so it draws your eye to that. This button right here is the refresh button. So if you have had the dashboard open and minimized for a while, if you maximize it again, you just hit the refresh button and it goes out and it recalculates everything. So I highly recommend, if you're not using the dashboard, that you start to use it. It's really a great tool. All right. I'm going to take you into Excel now. And just a little recap, I said that Liberty Reports is an Excel add-in. When you install it, it creates a new part of the ribbon. And the ribbon enables you to very easily change the company that you're reporting on. If you click Select Databases, you can choose any Sage 100 company. And then when you hit the Select button, it will prompt you to log in, and it's tied to the Sage security. So, people who you have not given access to Sage 100 are not going to be able to run this. I've already logged into my sample company. I want to point out this part of the ribbon, because I'm going to be talking about some of these tools. There's a query wizard that enables you, it walks you through the process of pulling information from the Sage database. You can pull information from any table. You can pull information easily from multiple tables. The function wizard allows you to do functions that are similar to Excel functions, but instead of acting on something in Excel, it actually pulls a particular piece of information from your database. Now, I've designed my financial dashboard with a couple of parameters. I have my cutoff period, which I'm going to run for period 6. I have an aging date, and I have the option to age by invoice date or due date. I'm going to hit my refresh button. It's reaching out, and that fast, it did all the calculations. And here's my financial dashboard. Now, the top part is a balance sheet comparison. It rolls up the assets and the liabilities and equity to just, the key lines, gives me my period balances, gives me my common ratio, so I can see, for example, that cash is 6.5% of my total assets. AR is really high. It's 80% of my total assets. So I can, right next to it is the industrial average, which I plugged in from an RMA report for a construction company of a similar size. So I can compare these and calculate in my mind what the difference is. But because the dashboard is supposed to be graphical and make things stand out, I put in this chart, which is assets. My assets in green, my asset compare percentage, and the black lines are the industry average. So I can see at a glance that all of my assets are beneath the industry average, except for my AR net. Net is net of allowance for doubtful accounts. Mine is twice the industry average. On the liability side, it's the same thing. Everything is beneath the industrial average, except my trade payables is more than twice as high. So if this was a real company, I would want to be looking at that. Underneath that section, there's accounts receivable and accounts payable graphed by aging period with the totals up at the top and a column for retainage. And having them side by side like this enables me to see at a glance that if I collect my receivables that are currently due and due within 1 to 30 days and subtract what my accounts payable is for the same time period, I don't even have to use a calculator to know that I've got a good margin here, a good cushion. So that's very helpful. At the bottom, I've got an income statement summary. It's a little bit different from the Sage income statement summary. It's got a little more information. I've got a column for each period and a year to date. And then I've calculated my common ratio in this column, and I've plugged in the important industry averages that I should be tracking. So I can see that my gross profit is 22% versus an industry average of 24%. That's pretty close. But look at net income. My net income is 13% compared to the industry average. That is great. If this was a real company, I would be really, really happy about that. But I didn't stop there. I added spark lines. Now, spark lines are graphical representations of trends. So if I look at this spark line for operating income, I can see at the beginning of the year, my income, the first period was very low. It trended up, and then it leveled off, and it's trended down in the last period. So I would want to look at that and see whether or not that made sense and what are the reasons for that. Gross profit, I'm highlighting that, and the line that runs across the middle is 0. So I can tell by looking at this immediately that I had negative gross profit in the first and the last period. So something is very wrong. It's also highlighted in red on this part of the screen, so there's no way I can miss that there's a problem with gross profit in January and June. And this curve for net income mirrors that. So I've got not only the industrial average to compare, but these trend lines are very helpful for me to get a picture of what's going on. The last section is where I have computed some financial ratios for my company versus the industry median from the RMA report. And I put a little description next to this of what that means. And I see this is a camera. I took a picture of it, and I'm actually missing a column. There's a column hidden that I wanted you to see. This column is Excel's conditional formatting, and the idea is I want to automatically calculate these ratios each month, and if they're green, if there's a green line, I don't need to pay attention to them. If there's yellow, that's a caution sign. That means I do want to pay attention to that. And if they're red, that's a more severe warning. So this is telling me that my accounts receivable is turning very slowly, and my accounts payable is worse. Now that's a function of this being the sample company. But so, you know, I know I've posted a lot of invoices. I have not posted much in cash receipts. So the idea here is just to let you know how the dashboard functions in terms of pulling your attention to the areas that may be problematic that you might want to discuss with your accountant. And how did I do this? It's a simple calculation. If you look at the calculation, I took my total current assets and divided by current liabilities. And they came from this part, assets. I gave that a range name. I just typed total current assets here. I did that for each one of these, and then that made doing the calculations simple. When you have a range name, you can just type equal, press F3, and your range name saves you from having to go find that cell and potentially make a mistake. So watch how fast I can do this. Press F3 again, and I'm going to bring in current liabilities. And here's my number. So I had rounded mine, but you know that just took a few seconds to do. So I encourage you. I'm not going to dwell on these financial ratios, but I want to convey that they're easy to use. It's easy to get industry numbers to compare yourself against, and if you're interested, I've given you sources. Now I'm going to switch over to the project management dashboard, and this one is in process. I just started this, so it's not finished, but I wanted to give you an idea that the same kinds of things are possible on the project level. So I have a contract summary section, and this is a picture. I use the camera tool. When I double-click on it, it takes me to a different part of the workbook where I actually just type these numbers in, and then here I used the Liberty Reports function wizard. There's a function called dbFind, which is kind of like VLOOKUP. It lets you go pull something in, a single number from your Sage company. And basically you just have to tell it which company, what table, what field you want, and it does the rest for you. And there's a wizard. It's a very friendly wizard that walks you through those steps. So that's how I got all these numbers to summarize my contract. And then I simply highlighted those cells, and I used the Excel camera tool. When I click the camera, then I can click again, and I've got a live picture of that. And as this changes, so does the picture. And I can put this anywhere I want. So that's how I was able to line these up so neatly. It's like you're not restricted anymore by rows and columns. So I've got my contract summary. I've got my budget summary. I have over budget cost codes. This is just a pivot table that I did. I have a section, a worksheet, where I use the Liberty Reports query tool to pull in some numbers by cost code and cost type. I pulled in the original budget number. I pulled in budget changes that are approved. I calculated the revised budget. I pulled in the cost to date, actual cost to date, and I calculated the balance. Once I had that information, then I could highlight the information and click Insert Pivot Table on the ribbon, and that brought this to this side of my worksheet. And it's simply a matter of dragging and dropping what I want. So I dragged down, I wanted my cost types, so I took the type name and dragged that down. And then I wanted my revised budget and my actuals to date, so I dragged them down into the row area. It took me about a minute to do that. Then I highlighted this, and I created this chart that you saw on the pivot table. This is a chart of budgeted costs versus actual costs by cost type. So it's a graphic where I can easily compare how I'm doing. The revised budget is blue, and the actual to date is red. So I can see there's a problem with other. So when I took a picture of this and I put it on the dashboard, I put beneath it another little pivot table that describes, it gives me the numbers. So not only do I have the graphical representation, but right below it I have the numbers. This over budget cost code is a pivot table that I filtered for just negative balances. So you see, once you get this information into Excel, there is so much that you can do with it. It's really a great report writing tool, and I'm happy to be able to show this to you. If you're interested in dashboards, you're interested in developing dashboards, talk to us, because it's something that we can do for you or help you do. All right, so I think I want to save some time for questions, so I'm going to turn back to Krista.
Okay, if you have a question, please type it into the questions box on the screen. We'll be happy to answer. So far, we don't have any.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating. I hope that you have found it helpful. And if you have questions or you are interested in following any of those web links to download information and you're having trouble, just send me an email. I'm happy to assist you with that.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.